Greetings, dear viewers. This is George from Ireland, and this video is about how the Republican Party in the United States is turning into a bunch of banana Republicans. Let me say at the outset, that's not all of them. There are some decent Republicans. First of all, what is a banana republic? It's a term that emerged at the start of the 20th century, referring to certain countries in Latin America that were dominated by the United Fruit Company, and there would be a president who would come to office during a risibly fraudulent election, who would accrue all power to himself, who would sometimes pay lip service to the Constitution, whilst in practice flagrantly violating it, who would live in great opulence, not through honest business, but through ripping off the public, rewarding a handful of cronies, and ruling his country with a reign of terror. Now, in relation to the United States, this is a metaphor. Obviously, there's exaggeration for effect when I'm likening what's happening in the United States to that. Trump is not actually committing a reign of terror against his people. It's a slightly tongue-in-cheek expression when I'm talking about the United States. But what are some of the features common to a banana republic and to the way Trump would certainly like to run the United States? There is this disregard for constitutional norms. I'm not saying he's actually breaking the Constitution, because there could be legal consequences if he did. Contempt for rule of law. He's outraged that all organs of the federal government are not completely obedient to him. He thinks they ought to be obedient to him personally, not to the office of the president. And that's a key distinction. He doesn't grasp the difference between Donald Trump as an individual and the office of the presidency. And this is what infuriated him about James Comey, because Comey is loyal to the United States, to the Constitution, not to Trump as a man. So if you can't respect the person who holds the office, then respect the office. I hope you can grasp the difference. That's why Trump was so incensed that Jeff Sessions recused himself in 2017, because Sessions had an interest and was involved even indirectly, therefore he couldn't take sides in the investigation. So there's caudillismo in the United States, as in relating to a leader who's supposedly charismatic, who can smell the right decision to take, whose judgments must not be questioned. I remember one of Trump's young aides saying that kind of thing, going off on this ludicrous and hilarious rant about Trump trying to ban all Muslims from coming into the United States. A cult of the personality, where everyone's to adulate Trump and just be blindly loyal to a person, no matter how utterly flagrant his lies. No matter how irrefutable the mountain of evidence against him. It's very childish to exalt someone to that degree. There's braggadocio. Trump likes to be very macho, despite being chubby. I know I'm chubby too, but I don't pretend to be a hard man. So no distinction between loyalty to the party and loyalty to the state. That if anyone is a Democrat, that they must be prejudiced against him. And even Republicans who are not doing his bidding are outrageous, a part of the deep state. So they start peddling these wacko conspiracy theories on the flimsiest of evidence. The party is meant to be a fan club for one man. I emphasize that there are some honorable Republicans, those who've had the moral courage to speak out against Trump, which is not enough. I hope the party refines its courage. Unjust enrichment, Trump keeping a hold of his business empire. Previous presidents have divested themselves of their business interests, lest there be any question that they might be abusing their office for the purpose of unjust enrichment. Remember, Dick Cheney got rid of some of his share options and became vice president. So nobody could say that he was misusing his office for personal gain. Caesar's wife must be above suspicion. It's like the Lord Hewitt's dictum that justice must not only be done, it must manifestly and indubitably be seen to be done. So it could be that Trump isn't using it for personal gain, but it mustn't even look like he's using it for personal gain. That's why Trump is outspoken in his admiration for tyrants. and suggests to me that he hankers after despotism and thinks that would be a splendid system to draw into to bring into the United States, and he would not be hampered by pesky things like the Constitution. Militarism. He wants this military parade to adulate him, and I suspect that is the aspect of the presidency that Trump enjoys the very most, is being on a pedestal and getting this admiration from millions of people, because he certainly has fervent supporters amongst irrationalists, those who are malevolent, those who are anti-Muslim and so forth, closed-minded ultra-nationalists. Banana republics would see a massive scale redistribution of wealth from the poor to the rich, which is what Trump is going to do with these swinging tax cuts for billionaires, which is going to blow a massive hole in the budget with cutting Medicare, cutting Medicaid, getting rid of free healthcare for children, things like that. How immoral is that? Denying children free healthcare just so the super rich can get even richer? Who really needs the money more? And his disdain for ethnic minorities, suggesting that a Latino judge shouldn't be allowed to judge him because of his ethnic origin, sounds like a Mexican alluding to his name, as though only people of Northern European origin can really be American. But I'm fair-minded, and I'm even-handed, and I'll say when Trump is decent. I don't think Trump is anti-gay. I'm not sure of anything he's ever said which is homophobic. And I don't think he's anti-black. I don't know of anything he said against African Americans. He has expressed hostility and contempt for Hispanics, maybe because he doesn't like Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, although he does have a few Hispanic supporters. And the economy is going reasonably well. What I said about banana republics is it's not just primitive capitalist states. It could apply to socialist ones as well, to the Cuba under the Castro dynasty, to some extent to Venezuela under Chavez. So whether it's run by a left-wing government or a right-wing government, there are some common themes there. Happily, most of Latin America has emerged from that era, and by the way, these dictators often had the fulsome support of the United States, to a lesser extent the United Kingdom. The UK wasn't very important in the Western Hemisphere. So Latin America seems to have embraced the path of democracy, and that is to be welcomed. And I wish the United States would value its own system, which was a beacon to many countries around the world. So I'm glad that the Constitution constrains Trump. When the Founding Fathers separated powers, I suppose he was the sort of dangerous, foam-flecked demagogue that they were guarding against. Someone like him, who would be a forked-tongued populist, and who would rouse the rabble to have contempt for law and feel hostility and disdain towards the Constitution. So gladly, I think there's a limit to the amount of damage he can do.